Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Welcome to Politics Done Right from the studios of KPFT 90.1 FM, Houston, your community radio station. We have a great program for you today. We are going to talk about quite a bit of stuff. Donna Brazile has a message for Democrats. We are going to discuss the ills of the false equivalences the mainstream media continues to promote. We close with Ray McGinnis, who discusses 9/11 unanswered questions. But let me tell you something, folks. Later on, I'm not going to tell you right now, but we have some great news for you. It's going to make your day. But before we start on that, I want to kind of give a special message. Right now, you're hearing a whole lot of negative information as far as how we're going to do in 2022. The idea is to bring your spirits down. People that are down, they don't vote. They don't do the things that they know they should do. Don't fall for it. 2022 will be as bright as you allow it to be. The Democrats are asleep at the wheel. And you know, it's not only the national Democrats, it's the Texas Democrats. It's Democrats all over that I don't see them engaged the way that they should. Donna made an observation about 6 weeks out. We shouldn't wait till 6 weeks out. We need to do more. I want you to first listen to her, and then we'll go ahead and take it on the other side. What she said is prescient, and the Democrats better start listening.
Donna Brazile, it does seem like Pennsylvania, one of the few bright spots the Democrats are pinning their hopes on.
Well, we got a couple others. I hope Ohio, after the Republicans spent over $75 million, I think the tab in Pennsylvania is going up to $70 million, just beating each other up. So that's an opening for Democrats. We have an opening, I think, in North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Ohio. These are seats where there are Republican retirements. But we also have to protect the home front: Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, New Hampshire. Democrats got to stop sleeping at the wheel, okay? I'm serious. Stop sleeping at the wheel. Stop waiting for the last 6 weeks of the election. I know we're about to spend a ton of money on television. That's like just throwing water in the wind. Democrats got to go back and create communities and remind people what the Democratic Party is doing to help them. Help them at the gas station. Help them in the grocery store. Help them where it matters, in their wallets, in their homes. But if Democrats are not able to do that and they continue to sleep at the wheel and just rely on Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, forget it. But I believe, because I trust the woman who was sitting here just a few moments ago, and that's my leader. She's going to fight like hell. And she may not be able to turn the tide of history, which is always what we worry about and you worry about if you had the White House. But you know what? You can still put up a doggone fight. And if Democrats don't put up a fight, they're going to sleep at the wheel, and Republicans and Donald Trump and everything else is going to happen.
Absolutely so, Donna Brazile. You're absolutely right. And you know what? She said something I hope that the Democrats understand. You can invest that money in high-priced television ads and try to see if you can get spaghetti to stick to the wall, which is what they're doing. That is silly. It is time to build community. Invest that money. You know how a lot of times Republicans do it? Those emails that are constantly, those chain emails, those letters that go out to people, going into the churches and talking to folks, having your advocates, having your narrative in these different areas, not on TV where you can't really direct your traffic appropriately. I mean, this stuff about Democrats thinking they can buy some ads, throw it out there, and it's somehow going to stick. No, you have to build community. You have to build trust. That is how it is done. And whenever Democrats start to do that, not forgetting the middle of the country either. That is what got many in trouble. By actually not going into all media markets. We must be addressing every media market, not only through media, but through bodies. Invest in those communities that you want to vote the most. You know, there were times here in Houston, I remember when the Democrats, they were putting money into these big entities that know nothing about the particular community, a community that they wanted to come out strong and vote for them. You know, I've been in organizations where you see they give the monies to these big consultants who know nothing about community, where they could pay quite a bit less to go ahead and invest in community, invest in what I mean, their policies are great, but people have to know about the policies and people have to be a part of the policies. Look, listen to Donna Brazile, because she's right here. Donna is not as progressive as many of us would like, but you know what? It doesn't matter. What she's saying is absolutely the right thing. And forget about investing in all that TV and start investing in people. Guess what? I have some great news for you guys. KPFT has a home. We finally purchased a home to host our studios again. So very soon, as we get more funds that we can build out, we will be in those studios and we are going to be able to take your calls again. I'm going to tell you, my KPFT brothers and sisters, how much I missed you over the last 2 years, having sold the building, having the pandemic, having all those other things that have occurred. We sure miss you. But we are in fund drive mode, folks, and we need your support to, first of all, make sure we can get those studios up to par so that we can open it as soon as possible. We hope so. I am hoping that we are going to have this thing open in well, I'm not going to put any numbers on it because, you know, politics done right. We only talk facts here, but we want to get it up in weeks. Okay, that's what we're aiming for, to get it up in weeks. We do need your support because there's a complete build out for studios, cameras, and all that stuff to give you a complete picture of what it's going to be about. And I'm hoping to be able to work with many to arrange a big launch when we open and have you there with us. And I'm telling you something that this is my personal gift to you, my personal request to you. Those of you who provide support in the name of politics done right, of $100 or more, or more, I'll arrange it for however many days it's going to take. I'm going to have you there if you so choose, if you so want, 100 or more. Come and sit down in that studio with me as we are doing a live Politics Done Right show. I mean, we need all kind of support. And, you know, that's a little teaser, yes. But think about it. You're sitting there and you're in the action en la cámara. La gente te puede ver en la cámara. They'll see you on the camera and we're doing together and you see the show being done live. Why don't you support us? $100 or more, and I'll start taking down names, right, of my supporters that provide those, and we're having it in studio, folks. So please help us get that studio up and running quickly. We already have the property. I don't have the address with me right on hand now, but in a subsequent show, I'll let you know. We're ready to go. We're serious. We are going to be back on air in the house. In other words, I'm not going to be pre-recording like I have to right now. We're going to be doing this baby live, you know, and you're going to be able to call in. You're going to be saying, "But I don't agree with you on that." 713-526-5738. 713-526-5738. Please call now before we start completely. Please call now. And 713-526-5738. Or go to kpft.org. kpft.org. Select whatever option you want. Just provide that contribution of $100 or more. Well, look, you know you can contribute however much you want to contribute, okay? That's the reality. But I'm saying I'm doing this to try to bring in more stuff for our station. Notice I said our station, right? So $100 or more, make sure to select Politics Done Right, because all I'm going to get are those folks who are contributing to Politics Done Right that I know who will be coming into the studio with me when we open as we do live programming. Folks, please call 713-526-5738, 713-526-5738, or go to kpft.org. Provide us with $100 or more to be in studio. And we also have a lot of options with books. I'll tell you about the books right now. Please get one of my several books out there. As I see it, Class Warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom, for a contribution of $120. It's worth it. How to talk to your right-wing relatives, friends, and neighbors for a contribution of $120. How to make America utopia, take away the economy from those who rigged it, for a pledge of $120. Get any two of those books for $200, any three of those books for $250. The contributions from my books go directly to support our station, KPFT 90.1 FM. Alternatively, folks, please get your basic KPFT only membership for $40, a Pacifica only membership for $25, or choose from one of our many other gifts for your contribution. Just go to kpft.org, choose Politics Done Right for the program, and select an option either for our books or something else to support the station. It is definitely worth it. Chuck Todd stepped in it once again. You know, you have to wonder sometimes, what are these guys thinking? The false equivalences is the destructor of America. Again, I repeat, the false equivalencies that many of these supposedly down the middle reporters, journalists like to do is actually a destructor of the nation. I want you to listen to this piece, and then you'll understand what I'm talking about, because what he does this sort of stuff all the time, right? But I mean, it's usually a bit more subtle. But this one here, this false equivalence is actually, in my humble opinion, dangerous. Take a listen to this, and then we'll take it on the other side.
It's time for us to re-meet our midterm meter. If you don't remember, it's a tool that we cooked up in the political unit that plugs in the key data from our poll to understand and visualize how the political winds nationally are blowing for the president's party. So we'll give you a little midterm history here, if you will, to give you a sense of the different outcome ranges, all the way with exceptional performances by the president's party that limits the loss of seats in years like 1998 and 2002, and then the shellackings, where the president's party lost a massive number, particularly of House seats, like in 06, 18, and 10. As you can see here, the various shellackings. We're looking most closely here, 10 and 14 and 94. Those were three bad Democratic years when there was a Democrat in the White House, 18 and 6 when there were Republicans in the White House. So you can see where we are. So where are we right now with the new NBC News poll? The wrong track, sitting at 75%. This is obviously in shellacking territory. But when you have 75% wrong track, that's how you end up with nominees that people in Washington don't want. Okay, John Fetterman and Kathy Barnett are what you get when you get 75% wrong track. This were 55% wrong track, you might get Connor Lamb and David McCormick, for instance. That's what 75% wrong track means. And by the way, good to see an incumbent lose tonight in a primary. These are terrible numbers for incumbents, whether you're in a primary or a general.
The first thing that I want you guys to notice that he mentioned, he said, when you have numbers like this, you get people in Washington nobody wants. Wait a minute. I lost it. I forgot. I thought the people who should want are the people who are going to elect these cats in their particular states or in their particular districts. So what is Chuck talking about when he says, when you are at 75% down, you are going to get people that get elected who Washington doesn't want? The truth of the matter is we want to make sure Washington doesn't get what it wants, because Washington is not doing what it's supposed to do. They're not passing Medicare for all. They're not passing Build Back Better. They're not passing policies that ensure that we can get to greener energy. They're not passing any of these things. So why should we care what Washington wants? So that is the first mistake that I think Chuck makes proper. Okay? But there is another facetious one here that we really need to look at. We really have to look at it. We all know who Kathy Barnett is. Kathy Barnett is a wacko. Kathy Burnett marched on the 6th of January with the Proud Boys. Kathy Burnett is one who is telling women that you will not be able to have control over your own bodies. Kathy Burnett is somebody that says, yes, I was conceived on rape, and no matter if you're raped or not, you need to be conceived. That is who Kathy Burnett is. Kathy Burnett is also one who would lie about an election and say, oh, the election was rigged. Ask for you to give me some examples and proof. There's none. She can't come up with anything. That is Kathy Burnett. Who is John Fetterman? John Fetterman is currently the Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania. Okay? So Chuck Todd is implying that you get somebody either far left or far right if you go ahead and have these kind of numbers, right? But here's the kicker. Fetterman has proven himself because when run alongside the current governor of Pennsylvania, guess what? They won, right? So Fetterman can say, I won a statewide election. Connor Lamb, the centrist, the neoliberal, who everybody wants to say, oh, that is a guy who could get all those, the working class votes. You know what they mean by that? The working class. No. You see, Fetterman upped him. Fetterman says, no. I am the real working class man. They said, Fetterman, are you a progressive? Fetterman didn't fall for the trap. They wanted him to create a progressive versus neoliberal argument. And then that would get into all kinds of directions. He says, I'm not a progressive. But guess what he told progressives after, immediately in that sentence after he said, I'm not a progressive. He said, I used to be a progressive. The Democratic Party has reached where I am. In other words, yes, I'm a progressive, but I'm not going to let you use that soundbite in the next ad on me inside of Timbuktu, Pennsylvania, because you guys have maligned progressives in Timbuktu, Pennsylvania. I am going to show these guys after being elected what an elected progressive is going to do for Pennsylvania. For you, Chuck Todd, my brother, to put Kathy Burnett in the same vein with John Fetterman is journalistic malpractice. One is a serious politician. One has been the lieutenant governor of Pennsylvania. He even won the bet against the lieutenant governor of Texas, Dan Patrick, by betting him that if you, Mr. Dan Patrick of Texas, who is going around the entire country telling Americans that there was voter fraud, if you find voter fraud anywhere in the Democratic Party, I'll give you, you get $25,000. Actually, that's not what the bet was. The bet was, Patrick said, I want to find voter fraud and I'll pay up to $2 million to find voter fraud. And Fetterman did find voter fraud. He found it, but it was Republicans voting twice. It was Republican voting for dead people. It was Republicans voting for Trump. That's the only fraud that's been found thus far in the 2020 election. Okay, so again, for Chuck Todd to equate John Fetterman and Kathy Barnett is malpractice. Now, if he wants to equate Kathy Barnett with David McCormick, be my guest. As far as I'm concerned, anybody within the Republican Party today has to accept the entire mantra of the Republican Party. That's why you see smart ones like Liz Cheney and others have come out actively and said, this isn't what the Republican Party is supposed to be. You don't hear any of these other guys saying that. And therefore, they are in the same boat with Kathy Barnett. But John Fetterman will make a very good senator out of Pennsylvania. And yes, a very good progressive senator of Pennsylvania that will bring us one vote closer to getting rid of the filibuster. Chuck Todd, on this one again, shame on you.
Do remember, we are in fund drive right now, but you are still getting yourself a great program that we work at putting together for you. Stuff some that you may know on a small level, some that you may not know at all. That's why we're here. Politics Done Right, KPFT 90.1 FM, Houston. We're asking you to invest in this community radio station. But why? Because, folks, there's a lot of media out there, but it's not media that you control. It's not media that has your interests at hand. When we're talking about community radio, when we're talking about this community radio station, KPFT 90.1 FM, we're talking about a station that is solely funded by whom? You. And if it is funded by you, our loyalty is to you. Most other stations, commercial stations, they're funded by their advertisers, and their advertiser needs to program you. And they need to have you in a particular modal. That is why our politics is so bad. Because we need you uninformed. Politics done right doesn't believe in that. Politics done right, KPFT 90.1 FM, Pacifica Network, we don't believe that. We believe that it is essential that you are in control. It is essential that you support us so that we can feed the ethos, that we can give, we can enlighten with what is the absolute truth. In that light, I'm asking you to please call 713-526-5738 or go to kpft.org and support us. You can support us with a $25 membership, a $40 membership, or you can get any one of our gifts that you find there. Please do this in the name of Politics Done Right. Also, remember that you can get one of my several books out there. As I see it, Class Warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom, for a contribution of $120. It's worth it. How to talk to your right-wing relatives, friends, and neighbors for a contribution of $120. How to make America utopia. Take away the economy from those who rigged it. A pledge of $120. You can get any two of those books for $200. Any three of those books for $250. That is to support our station. And all those books, I promise you, give you all that you need to have that conversation across the board to ensure, to help us make a better America. So please support us. Please support KPFT 90.1 FM Houston. Call 713-526-5738 or visit kpft.org. In the name of Politics Done Right, please select one of our books, several of our books, or one of our offers. We're here for you. You can get Politics Done Right Mondays through Fridays on Facebook Live at facebook.com/politicsdoneright, on YouTube Live at politicsdoneright.com/YouTube. Please do not forget to follow me on Twitter for updates. My handle is at Egberto Willies, at EGBERTOWILLIES. Before you get started, please remember to keep your community radio station in your minds, KPFT in your minds. Talk about it. Tell your friends about it. Tell them you know about this station in town, 90.1 FM Houston, that needs your support, that is there to provide that nourishment that we need. 713-526-5738. kpft.org. Visit us online. Contribute online. KPFT 90.1 FM. You can visit us at kpft.org.
Today, we are honored to have Ray McGinnis. Ray McGinnis is the author of Unanswered Questions: What September 11 Families Asked and the 9/11 Commission Ignored. McGinnis believes the stories of the families of the victims of September 11th and their efforts to establish an inquiry into the attacks. He offers a doorway for theological reflection about what it means to live in a post-9/11 world. Welcome to Politics Done Right. Senor McGinnis, how are you doing today?
I'm very well. Thank you. It's so good to be with you today.
It's great being with you. First of all, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born in Vancouver, Canada. I have studied at the University of Toronto, a Bachelor of Arts degree, political science, religious studies, history, English literature. I was a Christian education director and worked at the United Church of Canada, kind of like Methodist, Presbyterian, Congregationalist, United Church of Christ in the USA. And I was involved in leadership development events and conference planning for 18 years. And then for the last 18, 19 years, have been teaching writing workshops through my own business across Canada and elsewhere, and teaching journal writing workshops and healthcare facilities to help people recover from injury and illness, helping grief support groups to journal their journey as they go through their journey of grief, having lost someone, as well as taking people on nature trails and stopping to write poems and looking at metaphors and everything. So it's a really been a good run. And I wrote a book in 2005 called Writing the Sacred, looking at the biblical Psalms and helping people write their own new spiritual psalms and poems as they would like to do in the 21st century. So that's what I've been doing. And
in a nutshell, I've got to be honest. I read about that, and I read about that issue. I wanted my audience to hear that, but also more importantly, I wanted to give some context to then. Why would you write a book called Unanswered Questions? What the September 11th families asked and the 9/11 Commission ignored. What really was the impetus for that book?
Yeah, I would call myself the accidental author when it comes to writing about this, because I thought somebody else would write the kind of book I've ended up writing. I was in Joshua Tree National Park in southeastern California on September 11th with 60 Americans from 30 states across the USA, and two people there had lost didn't lose, but they had a financial advisor who worked in one of the Twin Towers, and they were very worried he would die. He did live, but it was very, gripping for them and difficult for everybody. And I couldn't leave America for 5 days because no planes were flying, and finally took a bus across from Seattle up to Canada. And then my life went on. Fast forward in 2007, the 9/11 Commission was a blip on the screen, and the reporting up here in Canada was, very marginal. I did see Condoleezza Rice testify briefly before I was called to dinner visiting friends. And so I was surprised when I went to a bookstore in 2007 I was looking for a new book to read in the middle of a writing workshop tour in Canada. And Kristen Breitweiser, who lost her husband, Ron, in the South Tower, had written a book called Wake Up Call, The Political Education of a 9/11 Widow. And I looked at the book and decided to buy it. And I was really surprised that I could go for 6 years following the news, as I do from time to time. Sometimes there's a writing workshop for a weekend or a week and I miss things, but I'm generally on top of the news. And how could I go for 6 years and not hear anything about the families in this regard? I'd read obituaries reprinted from the New York Times and local papers, and I'd heard people read the names of those they lost on anniversaries. And I'd read a few, articles about some of the amazing people who sadly, tragically died that day. But I had not read anything in 6 years or heard anything on the radio or TV that let me know that among the families who lost loved ones, that there were hundreds and hundreds who went to New York, to Washington, D.C. to rally in June of 2002, who testified before the joint Senate and Congressional intelligence committees and knocked on the doors of members of Congress and Senate to demand an investigation, and including asking the president to do so. And I thought, how could I have missed this whole story, which I learned by the co-chairs of the 9/11 Commission, Lee Hamilton and Thomas Keane, in their memoir, Without Precedent, referred to these families' efforts as one of the best examples of grassroots democracy and citizen advocacy in many decades. And I thought, how could I have missed that story? I mean, I knew who Rosa Parks was. She did something, way back in the late 50s to make a difference with civil rights. But here are these people who had lost loved ones, and we all talk about the families who lost loved ones and the September 11th families and the 9/11 heroes, the first responders. But here I was going six. So I decided after reading her book, I went to their website, which is still up there now, and you can look at their hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of questions that they asked the 9/11 Commission to investigate. which were never addressed. 9% of the questions were addressed. 70% were never touched on. Another about 20% were just sort of briefly grazed on or acknowledged. But it wasn't an investigation. If I went to, when I was in school or university, if I had filled out an exam and only answered 9% of the questions and just briefly mentioned a few others, I wouldn't have gotten a passing grade. So I thought that, and as the years rolled on, so about 2015, my dad had cancer, and for a number of years, I wasn't focused on thinking about writing a book or anything like this. But it occurred to me in conversation with a number of friends, relatives in the USA and friends up here, that here was this amazing story about these families in a real accessible way, because we all understand the families. And I thought, a way for me to write a book, which would be different than some other ones out there. There are numbers of other books that are, I would say, more declarative and assertive around American government complicity, possibly, and writing more hardball political science or history books. And I wanted to write a book that would be accessible for the many thousands of people who'd taken writing workshops from me, who were not news junkies, but were interested in personal narrative. And I thought, if I write this book, and in addition to some of the information that I would need to write about in terms of what these questions are that weren't addressed, if I layer it with enough personal story and lift up excerpts of testimony before the 9/11 Commission from Mary Fetchett, who lost her son Brad, or Mindy Kleinberg, who lost her husband Alan, or Monica Gabrielle, who lost her husband Richard, and introduce these 12 people on the Family Steering Committee to the reading audience, plus other first responders and other people in the story, then it'll be a book that keeps moving from chapter to chapter, and it'll be, they won't be able to put it down.
Let me stop you a second there, Ray, because once we start talking about a 9/11 book or a book of 9/11 stories not covered, the first thing that many people are going to think about is this some sort of conspiracy theory book? Yes or no?
No, I wouldn't say it's a conspiracy theory. It's a historical fact that the families, not all of them, many families and many people, when you lose a loved one and you grieve, the inclination is to tuck in, to grieve and heal, and do that in private, way off the spotlight of any kind of news cameras or microphones from reporters. But here you've got families that went to Washington, D.C., asked for an investigation. Many of the people, the dozen people on the Family Steering Committee, 5 of them that I know of, and there may be more, but 5 of them I know for sure, told the press how they voted in the year 2000, and 3 of those 5 voted for the Bush-Cheney ticket. So the people who are involved in wanting to have an investigation, many of them believe that, having voted for President Bush, that he would be their strongest advocate, that he, of course, would want to know what went wrong. So it's a story writing about the efforts of the families, the actual questions that they asked the 9/11 Commission. And the commissioners, by the way, when they received the hundreds and hundreds of questions from these families, they said to the press in March of 2003 that these questions would be a roadmap for how to do the investigation. And so at least the public face of how they were receiving the families' questions was with great appreciation. And so it's really, I really write about, what happens behind the scenes, how the families are hopeful. I mean, Mindy Kleinberg said they were always hopeful that the government would answer the questions. And yet
let's break you there, because I want to kind of bring it now within the context of the program here and ask specifically, you wrote the book to give these people a voice that they hadn't heard from a voice that wasn't listened to by their own government. You presented a book that was a part of their voices. Give me an example of some of these voices that weren't heard.
Well, some of the individuals.
Yes.
Yeah. So Lori Van Auken lost her husband, Kenneth Van Auken, who died in the North Tower. She lived in New Jersey. Sally Reaganhard is in Manhattan. She lost her 28-year-old son, Christian, who was a U.S. Marine and now a probationary firefighter with the New York Fire Department for 9 months. Patty Casaza was a nursing student, and her husband, John, died in the North Tower. Monica Gabrielle lived in Manhattan with her husband, Richard. They were, looking forward to retirement in 10 years. Mary Fetchett lost her son, is up in New Haven, Connecticut, I think, or New Canaan, I mean. And her son, Brad, was like 24 years old. He died in the South Tower. And so, I mean, all of these...
Now, these people that it's tragic that these people have lost family members. Did they do some sort of a research thereafter to kind of find out exactly what they thought happened, why they wanted to go up to Congress and say, hey, you guys have not been telling the whole story?
Well, they were aware. I mean, Mary Fetchett, testifying before the 9/11 Commission on the 31st of March, 2003, said, in 1986, there was a Challenger space shuttle with a number of astronauts that sadly died, 28th of January. And within 5 days, President Reagan said, we need to find out what went wrong so this doesn't happen again. And here you have the greatest loss of life on U.S. domestic soil since Pearl Harbor in December of 1941. Why wouldn't the government want to know what went wrong, to fix whatever went wrong, like whoever was falling down on the job or whatever the protocols are, so that they can learn the tough lessons to make the nation safer going forward?
Of course.
Yeah.
Now, of these people that had any of these people, I know they had questions, and of any of these questions, were any of these questions informed by some entity that really kind of said the narrative that we're hearing on national TV isn't necessarily the appropriate narrative?
It's an interesting question about the catalyst for the momentum. One of the first things that happens is in October of 2001, Congress is discussing, I think, a $14-15 billion bailout package for the airlines. And at that point, somebody on the congressional floor said, I think we better have the families also get some compensation too. So this is a big catalyst because you have all of these individual people, many of them who are, some of them are familiar with politics. Some of them, Kristen Breitweiser, had training in law, but many of them, Mary Fetchett said she was never involved in politics in any way before this. But now you have families gathering together because the government has communicated with them probably by letter and said, you need to come to this hall in New York City or Washington, D.C. and have an information session about the Victims Compensation Fund.
Let me stop you there. I got to stop you there because this is a political show, okay? And the most important political statement that you've just made for a program like mine is a statement you just made. The government created a $15 billion fund to bail out airlines before it even occurred to them to actually create some support fund for the victims and the victims' families of 9/11 casualty, those buildings falling. Did I understand that correctly?
That's correct.
That is profound. And that tells much about who we are. Continue, please. I just needed to get that out there for we have many viewers from all different ideologies. And when we try to explain to them that the way our system works is always catered towards whom, the corporatocracy, and that people be damned. You just said it in a book that likely had nothing to do with this type of politics. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. There are people who are like Carrie Lemack is one of the people. There are a whole number of, dozens of different 9/11 family groups that are forming for various reasons in different places. One of them is called the Families of September 11 or the FOS 11. And Carrie Lemack and Robin Weiner are two of the people from that group that end up on the family steering committee that I'm following. But Carrie Lemack goes to one of these Victims Compensation Fund meetings, and she asks permission if she can write down the names and numbers of some other family members so they can talk to each other and stay in touch afterward. And that she's one of the people who who starts to get people to form a family group, but now they're starting to form clusters. And it's sort of over the winter of 2001, 2002. And the families are a lot of them are expecting that the government is just going to go ahead and do the right thing, and because of their own interest in security and defense, to just find out what happened. But it seems that instead what's happening is Vice President Cheney is saying, no, he's phoning Tom Daschle, the Senate majority leader at the time, later minority and after the 2002 elections, but he's majority leader, saying he wants them to quash any efforts for an investigation. They're saying Cheney is saying, as is Bush, we don't have any money. It's just a distraction. It'll be a comfort to the terrorists if we have an investigation. And I remember reading, Carrie Lemack says it was during, I think there was a Washington Post headline in January of 2002 about Bush only wanting to have like a very secret behind closed doors investigation, if anything. And she hit the roof and said, this is crazy. There needs to be an investigation. We need to know what went wrong. So you have a lot of Republican as well as independent and Democrat family members that have one thing in common, is they've lost someone, and they begin to coalesce. And they're all, the people who are gathering are wanting to stress nonpartisanship. They get a rally in June 11, 2002, and Senator Joe Lieberman from Connecticut is there. Another prominent member of the Senate is John McCain, Republican from Arizona. So you've got a lot of bipartisan support of Republican and Democrat in the Senate and in Congress who are supporting and helping these families find out, here's a fax machine or here's a photocopier on Washington, D.C., because people are getting dressed up to look presentable and go and knock on doors. So they're finding their way. They're stick handling through it. And then finally, the president says, okay, after a lot of pressure, because Kristen Breitweiser gives an electric performance telling the Senate and Congressional Intelligence Committees in September 18, 2002, that there really needs to be investigation, because all the things that they're supposed to go on, all these protocols they're supposed to happen, just didn't seem to be going on at all. And so they agree. And then there was somebody in the White House that said that to the press that a train was coming and nothing was going to stop it. And so the president signs this, we're going to go ahead and get to the bottom of this. And then he appoints Henry Kissinger, who's got a long track record of secrecy.
Of course.
Yeah. So the families gather in late November, early December. And I think it's early December. And they go to Kissinger's office up on Park or Madison Avenue. And it's cold. They're wearing their winter coats. But he turns up the heat, as high as the thermometer can go, 86 degrees or something. And they're peeling off their coats, and he doesn't really want them to stay very long. And a couple of them, Kristen Breitweiser's done some background checks on him, and they want to make sure there's no conflict of interest. And he's pouring coffee for the dozen people there. And Lori Van Auken asks, Dr. Kissinger, we just want to make sure that you don't have any conflicts of interest since you're going to head this investigation, that you don't have any clients by the name of bin Laden. At that point, he starts to spill coffee all over the coffee table and loses his balance and falls off the couch and blames it on a fake eye. Many of the women, I think Patty Casaza mentions a lot, they kind of go into cleanup mode. They're training as mothers and so on, and they start finding the paper towel and mopping up the coffee. But the next day,
I wonder why.
But the next day, Kissinger resigns. And so then they have Tom Keene, who they find out later is on a board of one of the companies as part of a consortium very interested in having a pipeline across Afghanistan. And
so in effect, what you're saying is, in as much as we had a whole lot of dead Americans from a terrorist attack, which was legitimately a terrorist attack, I don't think you're disputing that, there was still money to be made, or money that nobody wanted to risk by trying to expand that too much into investigating what families wanted to hear. Is that what I'm understanding, including not going after the Saudis who were kind of escorted out of the country, as I recall?
Yes. The co-chair is Lee Hamilton. I could say, okay, I mean, Bush is resistant. He's a Republican administration. So let's, a Democrat, Lee Hamilton from Indiana, who's been, it doesn't matter. Lee Hamilton happens to be, they find out, a best friend of Dick Cheney, a best friend of Donald Rumsfeld, Secretary of Defense for many decades. The Hamiltons, Cheneys, and Rumsfelds go off together for vacations from time to time. And then the families, are meeting in, February, March of 2003, find out that Lee Hamilton is against having any public hearings at all. Doesn't want to have any people coming for subpoena, no testifying under oath. And he thinks it's going to be, dangerous to do those things.
Well,
so
Yeah, let me tell you. I think you, in your book, which has very little in outwardly to what we talk about when we talk about the politics that we do here, prove that even that the politics that we do here affects not only the politics as we see it, but other items like 9/11, how the corruption within our economic system, the corruption within our political, socioeconomic system plays into this whole thing. Of course, Hamilton and Cheney goes out to lunch. Of course, these guys are in different parties. Of course, each of them presents the guardians of the gates of the majority party so that the one group in this country that does well continue to do well. And they know no party, they know nothing. They just know about ruling. And I think your book with all the machination as it goes through, presents that through a different lens.
Yeah, well, and I mean, the families, people expect that the people that they're relating to and getting to know, they have an official liaison with two 9/11 Commission staff. They have a front row seat. They've given the commissioners the questions. And then they find out later on that the executive director, Philip Zelikow, has, together with another senior counsel, Ernest May, put together an outline in March of 2003 of the whole 9/11 Commission report, the chapter headings and subheadings. This doesn't come out until the spring of 2004. But Bob McIlvaine, whose son Bobby died, and he's not on the family steering committee, but he was, close with, and he was also sometimes in part of some of these meetings. He says, it's mind-boggling that you would have an investigation where you prescribe what you think you're going to find before you start to do the investigation.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you've also got Zelikow, his executive secretary, Karen Hodecker, who had a resume from working with U.S. embassies in Europe, expects a certain standard, and so she keeps a phone log and discovers there's numerous phone calls that Zelikow is receiving, including herself, from Karl Rove.
Ray, how many pages are in your book?
454.
It seems that way because you have the whole story. Now, look, we are close to getting out of time here. So in 1 minute, tell me a synopsis that you want all of our audience to know and tell them why you want them to check this book out and what it's going to do for them.
Okay. I think that this book is about the stonewalling and the ignoring of a legitimate inquiry into what happened in a major event. We all live in a post 9/11 world. And I think that democracy is, depends on transparency and accountability and trustworthiness. And when you have a government ignoring and trying to get away with addressing questions, even from first responders and family members, you have a problem. And I think that the story is a cautionary tale of what to keep watch for and keep vigilant. And so,
ironically, just the way you explain much of what occurred, the intersectionality with what we talk about here is actually quite obvious. Now, I always ask the last question, ask you to answer it in 30 seconds. What would you have liked me to ask you that I didn't?
I would have liked you to ask me about the 9/11 Museum as I think about it, and to think about how that is a testament that's there, very physical, but also for your viewers to be curious about what are the more transitory exhibits in museums and galleries and in plays that have messages that are off message from what the museum suggests.
Ray McGinnis, author of Unanswered Questions, What the September 11th Families Asked and the 9/11 Commission Ignored. Thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right.
Great to be with you.
Guess what? I have some great news for you guys. KPFT has a home. We finally purchased a home to host our studios again. So very soon, as we get more funds that we can build out, we will be in those studios and we are going to be able to take your calls again. I'm going to tell you, my KPFT brothers and sisters, how much I missed you over the last 2 years, having sold the building, having the pandemic, having all those other things that have occurred. We sure miss you. But we are in fund drive mode, folks, and we need your support to, first of all, make sure we can get those studios up to par so that we can open it as soon as possible. We hope so. I am hoping that we're going to have this thing open in well, I'm not going to put any numbers on it because, Politics Done Right. We only talk facts here, but we want to get it up in weeks. Okay. That's what we're aiming for, to get it up in weeks. We do need your support because there's a complete build out for studios, cameras, and all that stuff to give you a complete picture of what it's going to be about. And I'm hoping to be able to work with many to arrange a big launch when we open and have you there with us. And I'm telling you something that this is my personal gift to you, my personal request to you. Those of you who provide support in the name of Politics Done Right of $100 or more, or more, I'll arrange it for however many days it's going to take. I'm going to have you there if you so choose, if you so want, 100 or more. Come and sit down in that studio with me as we are doing a live Politics Done Right show. I mean, we need all kind of support. And, that's a little teaser, yes. But think about it. You're sitting there and you're in the action en la cámara. La gente te puede ver en la cámara. They'll see you on the camera and we're doing together and you see the show being done live. Why don't you support us? $100 or more and I'll start taking down names, right, of my supporters that provide those. And we're having it in studio, folks. So please help us get that studio up and running quickly. We already have the property. I don't have the address with me right on hand now, but in a subsequent show, I'll let you know. We're ready to go. We're serious. We are going to be back on air in the house. In other words, I'm not going to be pre-recording like I have to right now. We're going to be doing this baby live. And you're going to be able to call in. You're going to be saying, but I don't agree with you on that. 713-526-5738. 713-526-5738. Please call now before we start completely. Please call now. And 713-526-5738. Or go to kpft.org. kpft.org. Select whatever option you want. Just provide that contribution of $100 or more. Well, look, you can contribute however much you want to contribute. Okay, that's the reality. But I'm saying I'm doing this to try to bring in more stuff for our station. Notice I said our station, right? So $100 or more. Make sure to select Politics Done Right, because all I'm going to get are those folks who are contributing to Politics Done Right that I know who will be coming into the studio with me when we open as we do live programming. Folks, please call 713-526-5738, 713-526-5738, or go to kpft.org. Provide us with $100 or more to be in studio. And we also have a lot of options with books. I'll tell you about the books right now. Please get one of my several books out there. As I see it, Class Warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom, for a contribution of $120. It's worth it. How to talk to your right-wing relatives, friends, and neighbors for a contribution of $120. How to make America utopia, take away the economy from those who rigged it, for a pledge of $120. Get any 2 of those books for $200, any 3 of those books for $250. The contributions for my books go directly to support our station, KPFT 90.1 FM. Alternatively, folks, please get your basic KPFT only membership for $40, a Pacifica only membership for $25, or choose from one of our many other gifts for your contribution. Just go to kpft.org, choose Politics Done Right for the program, and select an option either for our books or something else to support the station. It is definitely worth it. You can listen and or watch Politics Done Right Mondays through Fridays on Facebook Live at facebook.com/politicsdoneright or on YouTube Live at politicsdoneright.com/YouTube. Please do not forget to follow me on Twitter for updates. My Twitter handle is @Egberto Willies, @EGBERTOWILLIES. But don't you forget, listen to us live on air at KPFT 90.1 FM on Thursdays at noon and at Fridays at 11 a.m. all Central Time. Please remember to keep your community radio station in your minds. Keep KPFT on your mind. Talk about it. Tell your friends about it. Tell them you know about this station in town, 90.1 FM Houston, that needs your support. That is there to provide that nourishment that we need. KPFT 90.1 FM Houston. Well, folks, that's it for today. You know how I'm going to end this baby. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.